Okay, hello and welcome everybody to this panel webinar. We're going to be discussing professional learning or continuous professional development, CPD as it's often known, in international schools. And my name is Tom Beeks and I'm a trainer for the Bell Foundation, and I'm going to be leading the discussion today. So just to begin, one of the key challenges that international schools are facing at the moment is how to train and develop staff to work effectively in increasingly multilingual and changing classrooms as well. And I think one of the reasons this is a challenge is because a lot of traditional teacher training programs, both in Anglophone countries such as the UK or the United States, where a lot of international schools recruit staff, but also lots of other countries as well, don't include content on how to support multilingual learners. So many teachers, understandably, don't feel prepared for the additional challenges of teaching in a multilingual context. And that's something that we kind of find something of a universal, both here in the UK and internationally. So in this webinar, we want to explore the different ways that international school educators are approaching EAL or multilingual focused teacher development. And we thought, what better way to do that than to talk directly to some of those dedicated EAL professionals who are wrestling with these challenges in their own schools. But before we do that, I just want to give you a quick note about the structure of today's webinar. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now because we're going to be talking to, it's mainly going to be a conversation-based session today. But first, we'll be hearing from each panelist who's going to say a little about their context, and they'll be describing their basic approach to CPD for EAL in their school. And then we'll be asking some different questions about CPD for EAL. And lastly, we will be taking questions from our audience today. So please, if you do have any questions, please add them to the chat or the Q&A. And I will be collecting them and sharing them with our panelists at the end. Tomorrow, you should also receive an email from us with a link to the webinar recording and any other links and resources mentioned in the webinar. I'd also like to add, please feel free to share your own ideas and experiences in the chat during the discussion. Because part of the reason for this webinar is to share experiences in different contexts, because everybody's working somewhere a little bit different. So it gives me great pleasure then to welcome today's guests. We have Dalia Aljaibat and Sharmilla Narkiran. Dalia has worked at the Hamilton International School in Doha since 2022, where she works as an EAL coordinator. Dalia, would you like to say a quick hello and tell us what time it is where you are and a little bit about your school?
Thanks so much, Tom, for that lovely introduction and for bringing us together today. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here and connect with everyone today. I'm joining you from Doha, Qatar, where it's just after 2 p.m. The weather is finally starting to cool down a little. We're not quite in winter yet, but it's definitely on the way. I'm representing the Hamilton International School, which is part of the International Schools Partnership. Here in Qatar, we have two other sister schools, and across the Middle East, there are 12, all connected to a global family of 111 schools worldwide, as for now. At Hamilton, our community is wonderfully diverse. We've got students from over 90 nationalities, so you can imagine how many home languages that brings into our classrooms. It's something we really celebrate because it makes learning so rich and dynamic. I'm really happy to be a part of this discussion today, especially alongside Sharmilla. I've heard also such wonderful things about her work, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it.
Thank you, Dalia. Sharmilla, how about you? You tell us a bit about your context.
Hi everyone, thank you, Tom. So hi, I'm Sharmilla and I'm from EAL. I'm from the EAL department at Health International School in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So this is my 7th year of me working in that school, and this is my first year of being the head of EAL as well. So I have been an EL teacher for 5 years. So stepping into this leadership team is something very new for me. At the same time, it is not also it's a little bit challenging as well. So speaking about my school, HELP is a international school that follows Cambridge curriculum. We have a really diverse mix of students from different cultural and language backgrounds, including learners who speak Mandarin, Korean, Japanese, and then we also have Bahasa Malaysia as well. And then the EL learners that we work with are truly plurilingual, and many of them are confident in their first language, but they are still building their academic English skill. So as a department, what our focus is in HELP is we try to help them to develop language for learning across all subjects, while also growing their confidence to communicate and participate fully in school life. So I'm looking forward to learn more and also share whatever that great things that we have been doing in our school. And I'm looking forward to hear from Ms. Dalia as well. So yes, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Sharmilla. And just to say that both Dalia and Sharmilla recently worked with the Bell Foundation to complete our EAL accreditation program known as ALFRE. So we're really grateful that they've joined us today to share some of the effective practice that we learned about during that process, and also some of the challenges they've experienced, because I think it's important to say right at the start that we're not here to kind of, you know, tell everybody this is how you should be doing it. It's about sharing experiences and challenges, and what works in one school, you know, might not work in another school. But by sharing our ideas and our practice on what works, I think we can really, you know, we can get a lot of ideas and a lot of inspiration. So I'd like to start then with Dalia, and can you please just tell us, kind of give us an overview of what effective CPD looks like in your school?
Thanks, Tom. And exactly, absolutely, as you said, I think it's an important one because every school is different. There really isn't one fixed model for what effective CPD looks like. It always depends on the context, the team culture, and the learners you're working with. So at the Hamilton International School, multilingualism isn't an isolated initiative here. It's one of our 5 ISP learning pillars, which means EAL professional learning is fully embedded in everything that we do. At ISP, we genuinely see everyone as a learner, and that's something we deeply believe in. We're all learning all the time, no matter our roles. I'm still constantly learning myself, and that's the culture we try to nurture across the school, a culture of reflection, improvement, and shared growth. Our approach begins with a very clear shared belief that while not every teacher is a language teacher, every teacher is a teacher of academic language. That idea really helps us bring both the why and the how into professional learning. If you tell, for example, a history or biology teacher in secondary, you're a language teacher, that immediately freaks them out. They'll say, no, I'm not qualified to teach language. Then that would remove maybe the purpose that would encourage them to learn more about that area. So they would say, I don't know anything about that. So we want to shift that mindset and say, no, you're not a language teacher. Your job is not to teach verb tenses or passive voice or complex sentence structures. But what you are is a teacher of academic language, because every subject has its own specific language. So your responsibility as a teacher is to make sure that the academic language related to your subject is clear, understood, and usable by your students. It's a subtle shift, but it completely changes how teachers view their role and the purpose of CPD. Now, when we think about what makes CPD effective, for us, it's always about the 3 C's, contextual. It's contextual because it's grounded in the real needs of our school, our staff, and our learners as well. It's collaborative as well because it's co-planned, co-delivered, and built on relationships of trust. And I'll come back to that bit of about trust in just a minute, because it is a key. And it's connected. It's connected because it's linking a classroom practice, student data, and the wider ISP multilingual vision. And that connection piece is really important because it keeps everything aligned with our vision, policy, and frameworks. So CPD also takes many forms. It's not just workshops or training sessions. It can be learning visits, coaching cycles, collaborative planning, or action research. Sometimes it's even consultation meetings with admissions or leadership teams, because understanding how language affects access to learning is part of everyone's professional growth. And at ISP, we also have learning reviews every 3 years, where visiting teams observe around 50 lessons and meet with staff, students, and parents. That's another powerful form of professional learning. Those conversations push us to reflect our impact and identify where can we go next. But at the heart of all of this is trust. Learning happens best in relationships of trust, and that's the culture we've built at Hamilton. When feedback and classroom visits feel supportive, not evaluative, teachers' barriers, what we call affective filters, come down. So they feel more open to make mistakes and reflecting honestly. And it's the same principle we apply with students, isn't it? When they feel comfortable and supported, they take risks, they make mistakes, and learn more deeply. That spirit of partnership also extends to families. So everything we're saying here is that also it is related to trust. We always say we work in partnership, and that really captures the spirit of it, because we work in partnership with parents as well. So yes, relationships and trust are absolutely central here. Another key part of effective CPD is providing agency, I think, and choice. For example, with the Tier 2 program that we had, which is mainly for mainstream teachers, schools have got here flexibility to ask, what do our teachers actually need right now? So as schools become more confident, they might say, we've got this group of teachers who don't fully understand the multilingual vision yet, so we'll have them work through this module together. And then they might say, we've got another group who really understand the vision, but they could use more support with collaborative planning. So I think the secret of brilliant CPD is about tailoring it to the needs of individual teachers or groups of teachers and giving them choice about what they learn and how they learn. But that always has to be aligned with the school's overall vision and priorities. So it's not like a checkbox that we want, it's a living thing.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, I think this is a really important point you've made there, and especially about the importance of building trust and the idea that, you know, a lot of CPD should be supportive. It can't just, you know, it can't just be evaluative as well. Could you just you were talking about tailoring it to your school's needs, and you mentioned that you have a Tier 2 program in your school. Do you want to explain what you mean by that and how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we have at the ISP, we have the Learning Hub, which is an online platform for all teachers to continue developing their learning and having, let's say, to consolidate on what they're learning. So we've had a range of professional learning experiences here. I want to come to this later by explaining. Okay.
No, sorry, you can continue now.
Yeah, so for example, one of our key goals is to ensure that we have dedicated and trained staff here. So we have Tier 1, which is for language teachers, Tier 2 for mainstream teachers, and Tier 3 for the leaders. So that we make sure that everyone is involved in this learning journey, which is related to our multilingual learner.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting idea that you have a whole school approach but it's tailored to different roles within the school. Exactly. I think that's a really potentially useful approach to take. Okay, Sharmilla, I'm going to pass the same question over to you. And what does CPD look like in your school in recent years, and how has it developed?
Okay, so thank you. When we say effective CPD, the main purpose that what we focus is the whole school approach. So our CPD will actually combine us how I'm gonna repeat back of how Dalia said on both the why and how. Okay, so we do have our EAL principle that is not confined to the EAL department. Instead, they are embedded across all areas of teaching and learning. So our CPD should be effective, and it is supposed to be purposeful, inclusive, and aligned with our school vision for ensuring that every student, including those who are developing English as an additional language, they can access and succeed in the curriculum. So in terms of our CPD, we also have we cover in terms of the regular EAL-focused briefings, cross-department collaboration, and the inclusion of language development with the school's professional learning goals to ensure that every teachers actually see themselves as a language teacher. So we actually we kind of have a breakdown towards it. So one, we will have happen as a whole school where we will actually combine primary and secondary, and later we will break it into where we will just focus with primary and secondary, and then from there we will kind of go into year groups and subject teachers. So this is how we will try to see to ensure that all the teachers get the opportunities to learn, to try, reflect, and refine their practice. And to add on to it, this is not only supported by the EL team, we also have our school leadership who will also be part of the CPD in order for to ensure that the strategies are implemented meaningfully, rather than just trying to find a quick way to solve something. So yeah, that's about it.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Again, like you've mentioned some really important points there, which I'd just like to bring back up. But I think, first of all, it's that idea that any professional development has to be aligned with the school vision. And I think it's quite easy to forget that in all the sort of rush just to put a program together, but making sure it does align with what your school wants and your overall goals is really important. And I also really liked what you were talking about, where again, it's having that big picture where you start off with perhaps the bigger focus with the whole school, and then you're breaking it down into the sections of primary and secondary, and then maybe breaking it down further into subject or specific age groups. I think that's a really useful way of thinking about addressing CPD and making it tailored for different groups. And finally, mentioning school leadership, I think is really important. And I know it's not something we always have control over, but it's really powerful if school leadership are involved. And Dalia already mentioned, didn't you, that there's a specific program for leadership that exists in her particular context, which sounds very useful, I have to say. And that kind of leads us on then to the next area that I wanted to talk about, which was how do your schools plan for professional development related to EAL, and how do you decide what areas it is that you're going to focus on? So I wonder, Sharmilla, if you could give a bit more information about that for your school. So I was asking Sharmilla, but Dalia, go ahead.
That's okay.
Okay, so so when we plan for a CPD into the program, so our priorities are determined through, first of all, we need to look into the data analysis of our EAL student progress and their language proficiency levels. That is the main bit where we will focus on what are we planning to focus into the CPD. And then next, if we feel that the student progress has really been not giving much input, then we will try to create, we will then go into teacher surveys, in where we try to identify areas where staff really feel less confident. For example, in terms of writing, how to deal with writing when it comes to ER students, in terms of how they need to scaffold with in their teaching and modeling, giving examples. So these are the two bits, the main bit that we will look into in order to plan our CPD. Next is the whole we call something like a strategic plan. This is like a whole school development goals. So this is where we actually kind of, for example, in that one academy year, we focus on academic language and vocab. So this is where we kind of also say, okay, one of our CPD should focus on this. So we kind of try to put into all these factors before we plan in the CPD.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Dalia, yeah, what happens in your school? How do you plan for this sort of professional development?
I think what Sharmilla mentioned is really insightful, especially the area, I think, about how strategically she described the school's approach, which I feel like it resonates with us at Hamilton as well. So when it comes to planning CPD, we really try to make sure it's meaningful. That's based on evidence from what's actually happening in classrooms, not just on assumptions or data on paper. So one of the most effective ways we do this is through learning visits. These are short drop-in style visits that allow us to see learning in real time and use that evidence to inform students, teacher, and whole school target settings. So why do we do that? Like as teachers and leaders, there are two main types of evidence that help us improve our professional learning. Evidence over time, things like attainment and progress data, and evidence in real time, what's happening in classrooms every day. Learning visits focus on that second type. They're part of ISP's foundational approach to getting into classrooms, gathering live evidence of learning, and using that to strengthen teaching and student progress. A teacher might feel they're doing a great job supporting multilingual learner, for example, but it's not really until you step into the room that you can see what's working well and what might need more support. So we're analyzing the needs of educators in our school. It's really about going into classrooms and identifying those needs in practice. That's how professional development stays relevant, targeted, and responsive. That's where the link also to high impact learning comes in. Schools are responsible for the quality of learning students experience every moment of every day. Learning visits help us see that impact across stages and subjects, giving us evidence to continuously improve. This evidence also feeds directly into student target setting and improvement, teacher target setting and development, and also the whole school growth and impact. So we do learning visits to maximize opportunities for students to experience and engage in truly high impact learning. Beyond that, we always look at the bigger picture from teacher induction onward. We make sure that everyone understands that language and learning are inseparable. We regularly audit staff knowledge, skills, and understanding, KSU. We map that against our language improvement plan, the LIP, and ISP multilingualism roadmap, and then plan our next steps accordingly. So it's like it's a cyclical process, a vision, audit, action, reflection, and that's what keeps our CPD consistent, coherent, and responsive, as I've mentioned before, to what's happening actually in classrooms.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really fascinating, and I think what both of your responses really bring home to me is the fact that CPD, can't just be an isolated thing that we think about. It's intimately linked with every other part of school life, isn't it? And in particular, assessment and collecting of data. So this is, of course, why we promote robust EAL assessment in schools, because if you don't know, how your learners are progressing, then you don't know where teachers might need help to support those learners in particular areas. And as you said, there's that dual focus of helping both set targets for students in terms of their linguistic or curriculum development, and also with teachers themselves in terms of identifying where they would like to develop their practice and improve their, I guess, their repertoire of strategies and techniques that they can use in the classroom. And I'm aware, of course, at the moment we're still talking at quite a sort of strategic level, but I think it's really important because that's where we start, and that's where I think impactful CPD has to start, at that really big picture level. And we are going to talk about more details as we move forward. But thinking about this whole school approach that both of you have talked about, and Dalia, I'll ask you this question first. What is the role of school leadership in your school regarding CPD for multilingual provision? And also, how are you measuring the impact? And I know you've touched on that a little bit already, but I just wondered if you could go into more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I should also say Sophie McLean, our multilingualism lead, is here with us today, which is lovely because she's been such a key part of building and sustaining this whole journey. At Hamilton, leadership plays a huge role in shaping how professional learning happens and, more importantly, how it's lived out in classrooms. So our goal is to make sure multilingualism isn't just an initiative, as you just said, but a mindset, what we often call a multilingual habitus, where linguistic diversity and inclusion are seen as strengths, not challenges. At ISP, we know that strong leadership drives strong learning, and that's reflected in the opportunities available to us. We invest in leadership development through programs like, as I've mentioned before, the Multilingual Learning Leadership Program and the Senior Leadership Learning Program or Pathway. Tier 3 of the Multilingualism Professional Learning Pathway for leaders on the ISP Learning Hub. These experiences help leaders model the same reflective inquiry-based mindset that we want all teachers to embrace. At Hamilton specifically, all middle and senior leaders take part in the Tier 3 leadership in multilingualism pathway, ensuring that inclusive, language-rich practice is built into every level of decision-making, from curriculum design and assessment to how we plan professional learning and allocate resources. So by walking the same learning journey as teachers, our leaders can speak a shared professional language around EAL and multilingualism. It keeps everyone aligned and connects the learning first foundations to what's actually happening in classrooms. So when it comes to EAL and multilingualism, our multilingualism lead and myself work closely together to plan and align and sustain this approach. We use both the language improvement plan and the roadmap, our main quality assurance and impact measurement tools. They help us to evaluate our alignment with ISP's multilingual strategy, set clear, measurable targets, assess educators' knowledge, skills, and understanding, and identify which CPD actions will have the most direct impact on learning outcomes. What's powerful about that, about this process, is that it doesn't just guide planning. It also gives us a structured way to measure impact over time. We revisit each target using triangulated evidence, observational data from learning visits, because they show us the movement from low to high impact learning, and also perception-based data where staff and parent surveys reveal growing confidence in supporting those multilingual learners, and also the stronger home-school partnership. And also numerical data, while we track tools such as map assessments, our platforms, reports, and Bell Foundation indicators as well, because they show us the student progress. And in fact, a recent report indicated that 80% of ISP multilingual learners advanced one Bell Foundation band in a year compared to 44% nationally. So this is what I meant when I said that data helps us to also target our planning. So across ISP, data shows around 80% of multilingual learners progress. And this tells us the CPD isn't just happening, it's making a measurable difference in classroom outcomes as well. So I think leaders also use this evidence, of course, to close the loop through coaching conversations, feedback cycles. We review how strategies are being implemented. We refine support and celebrate what's working. It's a continuous process: learn, apply, observe, reflect, and improve, driven by leadership and, of course, evidence-based. So ultimately, the role of leadership in CPDs here is to model the culture of learning we want to see. So ensure that professional development is both strategic and measurable, and make sure that every teacher feels supported to turn language and inclusion into everyday practice.
Okay, thank you for sharing those ideas. I mean, it sounds like you have a really quite powerful system in place in your school, which and again, by utilizing each sort of level of in the school leadership down to the middle leadership and EAL coordinator to the teachers is a really impactful way of approaching things. I think it's also important to acknowledge that for a lot of practitioners, they may not have that in their school. And so I'm wondering, like, what advice, if any, you would have to an EAL coordinator, for example, who maybe does not have that kind of support in their own school, about how they might identify the things they can do for the things they need to do in their school to improve.
I think that basically we all as teachers can start from observing the students in real context and identifying their needs and their backgrounds, having a learner profile that shows the learner's educational backgrounds, multilingual backgrounds, and even if there was any special needs that are needed. So we identify the holistic learner's needs, and after that, working towards having some action points on how to support. We can compare this in our collaborative planning with teachers, like EL specialists can work collaboratively with mainstream teachers to plan for their lessons. This can start by taking care of the academic language and also the social language. So I think that EL specialists can always work on this with mainstream teachers. I know that usually teachers are always busy, of course, but having or dedicating like a time to meet regularly just to discuss those students' needs and to design their lessons in a way that's really differentiated and supported using strategies like translanguaging would really support teachers. So I think that leading yourself sometimes would be really helpful. It's like a self-directed professional learning for you when you keep learning and reading about what you need to help you in your context. So to be honest, we all feel curious when we have such students and learners who need this kind of support. As a teacher, it's normal to be curious and to think, how can we support? What should we do? And then, of course, once we identify the needs that we have, once we make some, I don't want to say reports, but have some collective data about the numbers that we have, the needs that we have, of course, this can be brought up to leaders, and then leaders would be able to study and see what can they do to support them. And this, of course, will help them in making decisions. So I think starting by observing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I liked also what you said about looking for opportunities to collaborate, because that doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to be a formal thing. I mean, it's great if it is something that's part of your practice, but it can also happen in a very spontaneous or informal way of just, having those conversations with colleagues. And I think a lot of EAL specialists sometimes feel quite lonely in their settings. They're the only person with all the responsibility. So the more that you can build those relationships and collaborate with others and bring them in, and actually just having a conversation can be a form of professional development, often by sharing ideas, I think.
That's true, Tom. I want to add something to what you've just said, because honestly, this gave us a shared language of learning. Like when the teacher starts by approaching other teachers, and maybe I can ask another teacher and a colleague to observe their lesson. Just a 20 minutes visit would help me to learn from their own strategies so that I apply them to mine. So we can often ask, are students busy or busy learning? These visits help teachers to connect what they learned and to build trust and dialogue, as you said, and shared ownership learning across the school. So I think that's really important to have to make it more natural and not to complicate it, but it's going to be like an everyday practice that we live to share our learning together.
Definitely. I think it's important to note that learning can go both ways. So it's not like the EAL specialists, we are just giving,
Yes,
we're just telling everyone else what to do. Of course, we will
exactly.
learn ourselves as EAL specialists, being able to observe our colleagues in their subject specialisms or their age group, working and seeing what content and what language and what techniques and strategies they use as well. And so, yeah, I absolutely agree. Sharmilla, do you have anything to add to this idea of leadership before we move on to our next topic?
Sure. Actually, to be honest, I would like to say what Dalia explained was pretty much kind of like a really something new as well for me to actually adapt to it. So in our school, how we have one of the things that I really feel that I should be really thankful when it comes to leadership is where they actually kind of like the leaders, they ensure that EAL is not treated as a separate initiative, but it is like more towards like a school's professional growth plan. So I'm really thankful with my senior leadership team, where they actually kind of like try to support. It's not the support that they give, it includes allocating time for EAL-focused CPD, and also they will try to promote collaboration between the EAL specialists and the subject teachers. So when how it happens is that like there's something called learning walks that we actually have in our school. So this is like the short focus observation that highlight good practices in classroom. So this is where we teachers, we kind of just go around to some teachers' classes to see how they are doing the lessons, and then we kind of just get on their to observe on what are the strategies, what are the tools that they are using, and also followed by the feedback and also reflection session. So this learning walk had been a really successful thing for us EL teachers and also the subject teachers, because we are observing each other and we could actually comment on to see, okay, you are doing this good, but you could do it better in that way. So there was a process of learning here. So through this, we are actually also kind of work together with the subject or homeroom teacher to actually co-plan the lessons, because that integrate the language and content objectives. So all these are happening because there's a flexibility given by the leadership. So I feel like one of the main thing that I feel that in a school leadership they should play a role is where they should really give us the freedom, and I'm thankful that my school leadership is actually giving us the freedom to do all these things actually.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message, and again, it's really important to highlight the usefulness of just being able to having a culture where you can go into other people's classrooms and visit and see what's going on. Okay, I'm aware that we're getting through our allotted time. So the next thing I'd like you to talk about, and Sharmilla, I'll ask you first about this, are could you share some specific examples of particular professional development activities or professional learning activities that you have used in your setting that have had an impact?
Okay, so there are few things that we have done in our school. So the first thing that I would do is I would like to highlight is where we actually have our short session between our department members, in where each one of us will actually kind of have to share on what are the teaching strategy that we have implemented and how it actually gives impact to our students. So this has been done within the internally within our department. So we could actually gather all the strategies and also the resources that has been used, and in a way one day we could actually implement the similar strategy into our lessons. So that is the first thing that I have done, and it actually works very well because we kind of get some ideas. We got to know what are the other ways to actually teach our students as well. Second, we go into the category with our subject teachers, in where we actually kind of include our humanities subject teachers, English subject teachers, science subject teachers, and then we kind of give them out to be honest, we use Bell Foundation as our framework. So we kind of just give them the strategies. Okay, we have that strategies. Okay, how would you actually use that strategies into the lesson? So we kind of give them some strategies from the Bell Foundation, and then we ask them to actually bring in their lesson plan. And through that CPD, we actually kind of guide them to actually use the strategies in a correct way. It's not just about using, okay, we are using something to teach EL students, but using it effectively to teach our EL students. And then followed by also for the homeroom teacher, because homeroom teacher they are already teaching many subjects. So rather than just emphasizing on what they can do, what we will do is there will be a learning teaching assistant in the class. We kind of give a learning teaching assistant a separate session to actually guide on how they could actually help out the EL students or some multilingual students in the class in order for them to actually engage themselves in the lesson. So it's the role when it comes to a classroom where involves EL student, it's not just for the home teacher, it's also for the teachers, whoever that's coming into the class. So we kind of expose these steps in order for us to have like to encourage a culture of reflective practice and consistent implementation across the school. And this micro CPD, as I said, is just a 10-minute session that it happens during the meetings. So it doesn't have to be a separate day for it. So during our, for example, okay, every Thursday is my department meeting. So Thursday, I will allocate 10 minutes. Okay, now today you are going to discuss and talk to us. What kind of strategies have you done and how does it actually work in your lesson? So this little but often approach is actually effective because it embeds a sustainable habits, and in eventually we can get to analyze EL students progress over time because we are trying to link into specific classroom strategies to improve the language proficiency and academic achievement. Yes.
Thank you. That's great. And were there any strategies in particular that you've noticed have, I don't know, been more widely embedded as a result of these like micro sessions?
Okay, so one of the things that sorry.
No. Continue.
So one of the strategies that I really feel is that most of them were really interested in using the darts teaching strategy. So they were actually quite interested to see how it actually works. And to my surprise, the department that really find it really like so helpful using this strategy was with the humanities department. So because they were really finding it hard to actually, because it's a heavy language content subject. So when we introduce the strategies, they actually finding it very interesting, and they kind of, we could see them implementing in their lesson plans. So that was one of it, that when we shared during the 10-minute session, this strategy has been really been effective for us and also to the other departments.
Thank you. I'm just going to share in the chat a link to darts in case you're not sure what they are. There's a page on our website, but it's to activities related to text, isn't it? Anyway, thank you so much. And the same question over to you, Dalia. Could you just give us some examples of things that have worked for you?
Sure. Actually, we've had a range of professional learning experiences that really transformed practice across our school, not just in terms of knowledge, but in culture and confidence as well. So one of the most impactful has been our Learning First journey through the ISP Learning Hub. Every member of staff completed here 6 core modules focused on evidence of learning, challenge, and reflection. That gave us a shared language of learning. Phrases like the good struggle and getting better became part of everyday conversations about teaching and progress. It really helped us move away from compliance-based CPD and towards something much more reflective and collaborative. I mentioned the learning visits earlier, but I'd like to take this opportunity to clarify what that actually looks like in practice. The real shift for us happened here when we started turning that professional learning into classroom action. So we introduced the learning visits and peer visits as part of that learning journey. These are short 20 minutes non-evaluative drop-ins that focus purely on learning, not teaching. We often ask ourselves, are students busy or busy learning? So we're not looking at the teacher's performances. That question really helps reframe the focus. It's about what the students are doing, thinking, and saying, rather than what the teacher is presenting. These visits helped us helped us to connect what we've explored in our professional learning and with what's actually happening in our classrooms. Over time, that built a culture of trust, reflection, and ownership of learning. And also, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the multilingualism professional learning pathway has been another key strand of our CPD. It's part of the ISP Learning Hub too, but with a specific focus on language and inclusion. It's as I said, it's a multi-tiered program. So tier 1 for language teachers, 2 for mainstream, and 3 for leaders. And it supports everyone understanding both the why and how of multilingualism. For example, Module A explained and explored the why, identity, inclusion, and parent partnership is important, while Module C, for example, focuses on the how, translanguaging, scaffolding, and creating language-rich classrooms. So after each module, staff apply their learning and upload short reflections through portfolios. We also formed a multilingualism working party across phase teams that continues the dialogue, shares strategies, and also keeps the momentum alive. Together, these two strands, I would say, learning first and the multilingualism pathway, have built a shared language, shared purpose, and stronger alignment across the whole school, where multilingualism and learning truly go hand in hand.
Okay, thank you. And what would you say have been some of the noticeable changes then that you've observed in classrooms in terms of what teachers are doing over the last, I don't know, couple of years that you've been doing these things?
Just the last year, I would say. So we've noticed that students now are using the language. For example, they would say, I feel like I'm having a good struggle, or if they feel that they need support, they would say that I think I need help. So the students themselves started to use the language, the shared language that we want to use, and also teachers started to use that shared language. I would say that this is a huge shift as well. Of course, we've noticed that we have more high impact learning because of differentiation, because of scaffolding, because of translanguaging strategies that celebrate all of the students' home languages. So our mainstream classes are also multilingual. Teachers are considering their students' home languages. We're using their home languages for each lesson across phases and across grades, and also, of course, subjects. So that doesn't apply only on English lessons now. You can see this in math. In a maths lesson, students can express themselves in their home language and then translate to their friends. So this is a practice that we live every day, which shows the impact of that journey of learning that we had.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I can see somebody just asked, did you design these modules yourself, or did you find them online? And I believe they come from your school, the group, right? You're part of the ISP school, and I think you're quite fortunate in that they provide that training for all their schools. Is that correct?
That's true. We're really proud to have that and grateful, to be honest.
So yeah, I think for if you don't, if you're not privileged enough to have access to that training, then one of the things we will talk about in a moment is where else you can find resources for these kind of CPD tools, because yeah, it often if you're working for a smaller school, you may not have access to those kind of things. And yeah, also I really liked what you were saying about having that shared language, and that the impact that's had on the students is really fascinating to me. The fact that they're actually adopting this and it's helping them be more aware. I guess it's what they call meta-linguistic awareness, or meta-cognitive awareness, where they're learning how to learn.
By the way, also parents, because as I've said, we work in partnership with parents. So even parents started to use the same language. I remember a parent talking to me in the last parent teachers conferences, and he mentioned that he was asking about his child. So he asked me, where do you think she is now in the iceberg? It was a Hungarian multilingual parent. So he was trying to explore and ask about what we already had in our CPDs for parents. So he was asking about the iceberg of the cognitive academic language and the interpersonal social language. So that was amazing and rewarding, to be honest, that we see also parents realizing and being aware of that kind of, let's say, theory behind the practice that we have in context.
Yeah, I think I've seen that in schools that I think work really successfully with their multilingual families. Is that sharing with them, share with them the research and the same
Exactly.
kind of information about multilingualism that you share with your staff and your learners as well, because they once they understand it, they're usually a lot more supportive, and they really
Absolutely.
bring their own ideas and experiences and to support provision in the school too. Okay, so I'm aware that we're getting short of time, so I think what I'd like to do is address a couple of the questions that we've had from the audience, and I apologize, I won't be able to cover everyone's questions, and also I'm going to focus on questions that relate specifically to our topic today of professional development. But I think there was an interesting question that came in, which I think is a good one to talk about, which is somebody asked, how do you get rid of the perception of being in EAL, and my students sometimes feel embarrassed about it? Now, this isn't directly linked to professional learning, but I think it's linked to how you develop a culture within your school about students. So how would you, how would you address the idea that learners might be embarrassed or not want to be labeled as an EAL or a multilingual learner?
Absolutely. I think I would love to answer that. So
please go ahead, and then I'll pass it over to Sharmilla.
I think sorry, yeah, of course, I'll go after Sharmilla, no problem.
Actually, what I wanted to say is that this is something very common. I guess most of the school have been experiencing that students are feeling that when they are an EL learner, that means they are bad. They are they are very weak. So we recognize that our EL learners, they can sometimes feel really isolated and anxious when they can really feel, okay, I'm in EL class, that means I don't really know how to speak in English. My English is very bad. So to support their well-being, what we do is we make sure that they really feel seen, heard, and also not just through their English ability, but then we just value them for who they are. So what we will try to do is we will try to just make sure that they have a supportive buddy. So we have someone called young interpreters in our school. We kind of buddy them up during lunchtime and break them to ensure that they have someone to sit with. And this young interpreters is someone who is either they could either speak in Japanese, Chinese, or even Korean. So we partner them out with the students, with a group of students, so that they can actually sit and talk to each other. So in that way, the student actually feel, okay, there's someone to help me out. Even in the class, what we have been practicing is that we actually kind of like in the first 2 weeks, this specific new students or EAL student, they would actually sit with a buddy in the class with the same home language. This is because this will build the confidence in the students. And if at all that they could not understand what has been said by the teacher, even the teacher will kind of just tell, okay, for example, I'm just saying, Sham, could you explain to Dalia what is happening? So she is kind of just help out in explaining or rephrasing what the teacher has been said. So from our side, what we will do, we will kind of check in informally. It's like we don't really go and tell, okay, I'm here to support you. I just want to see how you know. We don't really do that. We kind of go informally, just like, for example, twice a week, just to see how are they settling in. And then we will work closely with the homeroom teachers, and then we try to share the strategies, like we give them extra time to respond, and also allowing visual or gestures to support understanding. So that is how we do it. Yeah.
That's okay. No, I see your daughter's trying to get involved, but she's obviously very passionate about multilingualism, I'm sure. That's great. No, I think that's a wonderful response. And do you have anything to add to that, Dalia, from your perspective?
No, actually, 100%. I agree with Sharmilla, as we're budding students as well, and that's a really amazing strategy, which will help students to feel more confident and to normalize asking for help from our colleagues. And of course, that would make students feel more confident and avoid being embarrassed. And again, once you start celebrating all of the home languages, because there's no native speaker of an academic language, even a native speaker of English would still need to learn that academic language. So I would say that this way it will be shifted from that misconception and
Yeah.
with habitus. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And that's for me the key thing here is it's making everybody realize that multilingualism is kind of normal. As you said, there's no native speakers for academic English, right? So we're all multilingual. Even if we only think of ourselves as monolingual, there's a good chance we have a different dialect, or we speak differently to our friends from home than we do to our boss in the school, and making it clear to the whole everybody, staff and learners, that we are all multilingual. And it might be in your school that you remove the label of EAL. I know some schools like to do that, and they just refer to everyone as plurilingual learners or whatever that might be. That schools have different labels, but I do think that de-labeling, we can call it, is really important as part of that. And I'm just going to share as well in the chat, there's a lovely website that was set up some years ago by Cambridge University called We Are Multilingual, and it has some like free lesson plans, and this is aimed at UK schools, but it's got like little lessons to help children understand more about multilingualism. And it like I say, it's aimed for children in the UK, but I think it could be adapted for other contexts as well.
Please do share it, of course.
So I guess one final one question that somebody asked was regarding your learning visits or drop-ins, and are they structured in a particular way? So, for example, is there a meeting with the teacher before or afterwards, or does it happen more informally?
Well,
either of you both do this,
Dalia,
but yeah.
Dalia, you go first. You go first.
No, I don't know why do I keep confusing the turn. Sorry.
You go first. You go first.
Okay, you can go.
Okay, so in terms of the learning visit, so how it happens is we do have a specific, the informal one that will be happening is when we really feel that, okay, this is the time that we really want to support, then we see, for example, a new teacher, then we kind of just go informally just to see how it's going. But usually some teachers who have been here for quite some time, what we will do is we kind of have a conversation for about maybe like a 5 to 10 minutes conversation with the teachers to ensure that they actually okay, we are coming in, we just want to know what is your focus of the lesson and what are the strategies that you have been using, and we want to know what is your outcome from the strategy. So we kind of just sit for about 10 minutes in the class to see whether the strategies have been implemented rightly, and also to see whether the outcome has been achieved at the end of the day. So we have a certain template that is also that's created by the school that we actually kind of use the same template for our department as well.
Thank you. That's really useful. And Dalia, do you have anything to add to how this works at your school, or just quickly?
I think we've mentioned it during the webinar, how we plan for our learning visits, and that there's sometimes, of course, they're informal, and we do have formal visits, but they're planned as well. So.
Yeah, and one question somebody's just asked very quickly is that as I said, I'm curious about the teachers' feelings towards your approach to CPD. And I'm wondering, how do teachers feel about, or how did they feel about it when you started doing it? And has that changed, or has it always been, was there a mix of feelings? Was it positive? Was it negative? I'm interested.
Do you want to go, Dalia?
Dalia, you can go first on this one.
So of course, like it might, when you're going into classrooms and giving feedback, it can sometimes feel quite threatening for teachers. That's why it's so important to build a culture where those visits and observations feel normal, where people know it's done in a supportive and developmental way, not a judgmental one. As we've mentioned before, the trust, relationships and trust are absolutely central here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. I'm afraid we are going to have to wrap things up now, but I'm just going to share my screen again with everybody. And I'd like to say a huge thank you, first of all, to both of you for your contributions. It's been really insightful, and it's always wonderful to hear about, you know, what people are actually doing on the ground in the schools. So thank you both. We will be sending out an email, as I said, with a recording to the webinar if you weren't able to make all of it, and we'll also share some of the links of the resources that we've been mentioning today as well. Of course, as a Bell Foundation, it would be remiss of me not to highlight some of the online training courses that we offer for CPD, for staff, before I let you all go. And here are some of the upcoming ones. We have courses, you know, embracing that whole school approach. We have courses for EAL coordinators, school leaders, teachers, you know, people involved in assessment in different areas. So if that's something of interest to you, then please go on our website and look those up. And the same goes if you're interested in accreditation, we do have a program for that as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for your time. And thank you for everyone who's attended the webinar and asked questions. Sorry we couldn't get through all of them. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day, wherever you are in the world. So thank you, Dalia and Sharmilla.
Thank you so much.
so much.
Bye-bye, everyone.